let's take a quick look at how the Kenya shilling is performing in the midst of all this in the country. Well, today the dollar is trading at 100.55, selling at 100.75. The sterling pound is trading at 129.46, buying, selling at 129.75. The euro is trading at 116 shillings and 72 cents, buying, selling at 116.98. Well, that's a quick look at the money market. Well, the turnover, the NSE performance, I think we'll be able to give you this. This is not the updated numbers from the NSE performance. Apologies for that. And of course, let's take you back to our Twitter poll question in relation to today's developing story, which we've been covering for you. Well, today we're asking you in relation to the fuel crisis in the country, what has been your experience as you try to fuel up? Feel free to share with us on social media as we continue to get reports that queues upon queues are being witnessed all over the country, here in Nairobi specifically. And of course, we also have some news that is also coming in, where the Bungoma High Court has suspended the decision by the National Treasury to levy 16% value-added tax on fuel, pending hearing of a petition filed by 3 residents in Kisumu. The news to this developing story is still unclear of whether actually it will be effected immediately or not. We have analysts to help us separate the wheat from the chaff here on the program. But first things first, let's take you over to one of our reporters, that is Julie Owino, camping at City Centre, where she has the latest. And good afternoon, Julie. Paint for us the picture right now in the heart of Nairobi. Well, Julie, if you can hear me, perhaps just tell us what is the latest that is happening from the city centre. Is the scramble for fuel still on or not, or things have stabilized?
Okay, Abby, we are stationed at this is Kobil petrol station next to Koinange Street, where we've just been made to understand there's one of the trucks of oil that came here a few minutes ago towards midday. That's around 11:30 p.m. towards midday, where after that came a lot of vehicles actually streamed in this place. Quite a clear indication of the thirst of fuel in the country at this particular moment. And we're made to understand since that time, the place has just been flocking from one vehicle to another, and we also have people summoning their friends to come over and consume this fuel before it is over. Abby, as you can see from my left side, how the queue is quite long. There are quite a number of many vehicles parked in this place, and people are just wondering when will this problem be over, when are things going to change in this particular direction. And now I want to move to Saitoti, who has been one of the men manning this place, to probably give us a review of what exactly has been going on and probably what is the next thing they anticipate for. Mr. Saitoti, thank you so much for joining us. Probably if you give us a brief, at what exact time does this place start getting packed with vehicles?
It was exactly at around 1 o'clock. Immediately the railway arrived for delivering the fuel to the pump station. That's when actually people started streaming in numbers. Yeah, but as we can see now, we are still actually fueling all the motor vehicles. There's a rush, and the rush is because of what has been happening exactly in terms of what has been in the media in terms of tax or fuel, this kind of stuff. Yeah.
So let me ask you, is this how long will this be sustainable? Do you expect it to be here for a whole day, or this is something that is just going to be in for a few hours and the fuel is going to be over again?
Actually depends. It will depend with the flow of motor vehicles and the information that is outside there. Being in the middle of the city, word spreads like bushfire, that in a particular place there's a lot of there's fuel. And the kind of fuel that we have here, it's able to sustain us maybe up to around 8. This kind of,
Around 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Sawa. Thank you so much, sir. Let me also cross over to one of the drivers who can probably, the motorists who can tell us how has this journey been. Habari yako mzee?
Salama.
Yes, tuambie unahusikaje ama unasikiaje kuhusu maneno ya kukosa mafuta nchini kote?
Mafuta imetupatia shida sana, hata huwezi fanya kazi. Mimi ama driver Uber. Sasa tangu asubuhi nimetafuta mafuta, hata sasa hivi unaona mafuta iko. But I'm very happy. Wanatupatia mafuta vile unataka kunywa. Mahali ingine unaambia 500, 1000, but this petrol station they tell you to put to fill your tank if you have the money. Yeah.
So let me ask you, have you also gone to other petrol stations to confirm if there's fuel, or this is the first one?
This morning they are empty. This morning they are empty. Yeah, I was lucky. I was passing here with a client, but when I saw there is enough petrol here, then I dropped my.
What do you think is one of the key things that needs to be done by the government to just make sure this?
It is 16%. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abi. That is amongst the few comments that we've gotten over in this place. You've heard one of the motorists say that the government should drop the 16% VAT on petroleum products. Back to you in studio, Abi.
Well, many thanks, Julia Wino, coming to us live from the City Center studio, actually City Center on the streets of Nairobi, and we continue to monitor developments around this particular story. Let's now bring in Abu Bakar Abdullahi, who is joining us from actually the industrial area, where we've been seeing protests by fuel transporters, which has been persisting for the last few hours. And of course, this is one of the stories we continue to trail for you. And good afternoon, Abu Bakar. What is the latest situation from where you are?
Good afternoon, Abi, and yes, I can hear you very well. I'm here at the depot, which is situated in Nairobi's industrial area. But actually, today the depot looks more of a military front. If my cameraman can pan to the left and see, there are heavy police presence guarding each truck that is getting out of the premise. We were able to talk to some of the drivers, and some of the things they told us is that they will not be able to risk their life by getting out of the premises of the depot alone without a heavy, of course, police presence. The police presence is purposely for safety. You will understand that yesterday there were protests in the area in regards to transporters declining now the VAT added tax on fuel, despite fuel already being the most taxed commodity in the country. Among the vehicles that we were able to see, and one of the trucks here, as we can capture it as it moves, is that you will see behind and in front of every truck there is often police presence, a police escort that is taking it to its destined place. This indicates, of course, the backlash, the possible backlash that some of the drivers and some of the suppliers would have received in regards to being seen as traitors, while others of their colleagues were on strike. Earlier on, we were able to move to some of the depots around. And one thing that we have noted is that it is not all depots that are at the moment functioning. We started off with National Oil, which we saw, as per the report they gave us today, that there was an increase in the number of trucks that were loaded with fuel. In a normal day before the VAT drama came into effect, and of course the whole talk about fuel now, in a normal day they say they would have loaded 1 million volume in terms of liters of fuel. But since the protest began, which took place yesterday, of course, there is only one. Yesterday is when they had 5 trucks, which is a drop from the usual 50 to 80 trucks that they have been ferrying each day. Today they say they have counted so far 55 trucks which have left their stations with oil. Just as you can see, if my cameraman can as well zoom into that, that is a truck ferrying fuel. Behind it is a police presence. That is what sums up the situation here at Nairobi's depot. Every truck that is about to leave or is on the way leaving has a police escort, just for purposes of security and, of course, concerns that they could receive a backlash. National Oil and Vivo Energy and Shell are the only brands as of now at the depots that, whose cars we have seen them ferrying fuel. This is how the situation is. Heavy police presence, of course, because of security, but they say operations seemingly have started to get up to normalcy. So, Abi, that is the situation on the ground as of now.
All right, Abu Bakar, just continue to stay with us. And of course, police presence, as we can see there in the pictures. And have you been able to speak to any of the dealers, and what are they saying in relation to this new development?
We were able to talk to the drivers. Some of the dealers whom we approached said that they wouldn't be comfortable talking on camera, but off camera they were telling us that, of course, the increment has taken place. The VAT tax is now in effect. There's little that they can do. They will watch over to the mercy of the president to either decline or, of course, leave the VAT tax on fuel to go ahead. So the dealers say that at the moment they have little to do, but because their businesses need to be on alert and on, they will have nothing and no else way to survive. So to them, irrespective of the increase in the VAT, despite now the transporters, of course, protesting and staging protests, to them they say that since it will be of benefit to them, profit-wise, it is better that they kick off their businesses.
And Abu Bakar will be crossing back to you in a short while. Let's take you to Eldoret, where we have Elvis Koskei standing by with the Moibed Member of Parliament. And of course, we also want to get some reactions from Eldoret. And good afternoon, Elvis. What do we know so far in terms of the fuel shortage in Eldoret? Is it happening or not? And secondly, we also understand that the area Member of Parliament and maize farmers will also be raising some issues around payment.
Good afternoon, Abby. We've been having issues here in Uasin Gishu County, and as you'd mentioned, our cross-check across the county, you could realize that some of the petrol stations are afraid they may run out of stock as from Friday. These are some of the things that, of course, we are keeping an eye off. Also, the issue of maize, where farmers in the North Rift region now want the government to fast-track the payment for maize delivery made to NCPB. But maybe to engage Moibed Parliament, Silas Stiren, have been having issues of the imposition of the 16% value-added tax. Maybe as a member of Parliament, I'm told that you people knew this.
Thank you very much, Elvis. So for sure, of course, it was. We passed it in 2013, and that's why people are saying we know about it. But we had said after 5 years it's implemented, and that is why you saw it brought up the other day. But after seeing what was happening, and I think one of the reasons why members of Parliament requested that we push it for another 2 years because of the challenges that are there. And that is why the finance bill has been sent to the president, which we hope that he would assent to that bill so that it gives us another 2 years so that we can be able to adjust. But I'm seeing what the CS did is that the other day he changed his heart on that because he didn't want to listen to what MPs were saying, and he's saying since we had agreed that time, then it should go through. But I want the president to think of Kenyans as well, because you can see now fuel, 16% on fuel has really harassed a lot of Kenyans, and you can see the challenges they are facing now. Everything has gone up, everything is shooting up. And I think it needs to be considered and it needs to be thought about, because the ordinary person, or rather the ordinary or the common or the Kenyan, let me say it that way, are really suffering. And we need to really consider them because it has become very tough. I would also want to add on that because, of course, we've seen a lot of issues of corruption, and I think that thing of corruption should be dealt with so that at the end of the day, Kenyans see that because they feel they are being punished and because there's a lot of corruption that has been going on in the country, and now to get money from this other side is that people are seeing that they are being targeted in terms of look for money now, and yet the other day there's a lot of money that is in people's hands which is not genuine. So we should also pursue that direction so that people who have been caught up with issues, they need to be dealt with so that Kenyans see that we are moving forward. So I would urge the president, and I would request him kindly that he needs to reconsider so that if he can sign the finance bill, as we had said, maybe for the next in the next 2 years before implementation, so that we are able to assist Kenyans. And on that note, I would also want to add, because the VAT has also been added onto agricultural produce, and that is also chemicals, animal feed, veterinary products for farmers, which I also think now farmers are going to suffer twice, because you see, when fuel goes up as well, it also affects them. And then also adding VAT on the agricultural stuff or other chemicals and the others is also going to mean that they will be hit harder. And you see the way they are suffering. You know, farmers have not been paid since last year. They still have their money, that they owe cereals and all those challenges. We are happy about what EACC has done. because of course you can see the other day quite a number of people have been caught up with, and like we have said, if you are innocent, you should not be worried. You will clear yourself and you'll be left free. But if you are guilty, you should be dealt with, because Kenyans have really, really suffered. So I would urge, because even like as we are speaking, we have no budget for farmers at the moment. So I don't know where they are going to take their maize, because there is no budget. And secondly, all cereals are full. So we also think that it is advisable that the government needs to see what they can do so that we are able to help the farmers, because sooner or later, farmers will be harvesting and they don't know where they take their crop. Last year's crop is still at cereals. Most of it has not been paid. Farmers still have maize from the other season, which they have not been cleared with. And I'll also touch again, because I saw East Africa community again sign an agreement to bring in wheat from Tanzania, which will be enough for us for the next 2 years. Those are some of the things that need to be considered. I don't want to talk so much today, but I think we're urging the President, and I'm also urging the Minister of Finance, to also consider Kenyans, because you see, Kenyans are suffering. There could be a few people in Kenya who can make ends meet, but the ordinary Kenyan or the common mwananchi is really suffering. We need to think of them. Let us be patriotic and think of our Kenyans first. I know there are so many projects that are yet to be done. They need the money to do the projects. Let us review the projects and go according to priority on the projects that might maybe be helping us. The others that we see, we can still buy time. Let us buy time so that we are able to change our lives. Thank you very much, Elvis.
Okay. Lastly, Bwana Kipkorir Arap Menjo.
Yeah. What Mheshimiwa has raised are very valid issues, because we are really concerned, particularly when you get the inputs being taxed, VAT being loaded onto that, and you see now the budget allocation is not also factored in for the farmers, for the incoming crop. All this is going to create a big mess in the farming industry. And you see, when they talk of the big four, we need to see really well-organized programs which are geared to, towards alleviating the problems farmers are facing. Because in the long run, we may end up our farmers will end up missing out on the whatever business they have been doing. And in the end, if we are not food secure, we cannot claim to be an independent country, or claim to be, to be people who are independent and we are unable to beat our own people. So this is quite challenging, and I hope those people who are making policies up there, they will realize that it's high time things change. Otherwise, I don't know, we have lost direction.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abi. Again, that was Kipkorir Arap Menjo, the director of Kenya Farmers Association, of course, Moiben Member of Parliament, Silas Tiren, weighing on issues affecting farmers and also the imposition of the 16% value-added tax. Back to you, Abi.
Many thanks, Elvis. Of course, very detailed information coming out from Eldoret. And of course, we shall be getting more updates in our subsequent bulletins. And still staying with the matters of fuel, let's bring in one of the other people that we've been trailing, and that is Francis Maina, who joins us by way of phone. And good afternoon, Francis. Very interesting times for the country. And what do you make of this scramble for fuel and the 16% value-added tax?
You see, thank you, Regina. Our main problem in Kenya is that our priorities are wrong. We act in a rush. And you see, at the moment, the oil prices in the world, they are at $70 a barrel. That comes to about 154 liters. In Kenya, it would sell at 45 shillings. Even if you would put all the taxes to another 40 or 50 bob, the maximum would be 90 shillings. The biggest threat we have is that the people who are either our importers or our economic advisors, we have got it wrong completely. This country is heading to the wrong direction.
Yes.
Because once you increase the 16% of fuel, it hits each and everybody, from hospitals, from schools, from school fees, from transport, from food, from hotels, from rent. Everybody is we get an inflation immediately. We have never had a 16% increase on fuel, about 17, 16 shillings in 1 liter.
And Francis, so what is the way forward on this?
You see, I think, and I would like to ask the Jubilee government to bring back the Economic Council, which was headed in the time of Kibaki, to bring back sanity in the economic forum and the policies of the government, because I don't think we are following one manifest of the economy, because we keep on jumping from one way to another one, the 4 tires, the education program. We don't seem to be focused on one issue. We can develop roads, we can develop the railway lines, we can develop airports, but you see, at the end of the day, nobody will sleep on the airport. Nobody will eat on the railway. People want the basic. We have gone to Garana. We have spent billions and billions of shillings. It has come out to be a white elephant.
Mm-hmm. All right.
People are getting worried because they don't know anywhere to go. We are heading to a crisis like in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. People in Venezuela are trooping out of Venezuela, and there is no civil war.
All right, quite a pessimistic approach there, Maina, but of course we continue to stay on top of this, and let's move on now, and many thanks for speaking to us, Francis Maina there, speaking to us by way of phone. And still on matters fuel, the 16% value-added tax on petroleum products means our charges go up by 16%. Those are the words of the chairman of the Kenya International Freight and Warehousing Association. The move comes in the wake of devastating effects of the 16% value-added tax on petroleum products that was implemented from the 1st of September that has seen increase in fuel prices, a hike in fares, and oil distributors downing their tools.
The increment of 16% means that what we were to charge initially will be 16% more. I have always said this, that what is the value of increasing, for example, this extra tax vis-a-vis the service that would come with it? It would be very difficult to quantify and give reasons for our increment if it were not for the 16%, and that only drives the cost of doing business higher. I really hope that the president will assent to that bill and get this burden out of our bags, because we do not really want to increase our service fees.
Well, that is William Ojonyo, who is the chairman of the Kenya International Freight Forwarders Association, just commenting there on matters VAT. And let me now bring in Vincent Kimosop, who is from the Tax Justice Network.
Yes.
Many thanks for making time for us.
Appreciate it.
And what are your quick thoughts on what is happening in the country around the fuel shortage, the new taxes, demolitions? But let's stay on the fuel.
I drove this morning to a petrol station, and I actually had to leave the car. I'm waiting for them to get supply. So directly, I'm directly impacted by what is happening. I think you have to look at it from at the basic level. When you touch fuel, you touch transportation, you touch manufacturing, you touch domestic, even lighting at the household level. So it's an indirect tax that then has major ramification across the economic spectrum. So looking at where we've come from a protracted electioneering period, a drought, and remember slummed economic growth, I would say that it should not be implemented. I fully back the calls towards the postponement of this implementation by the president assenting to the bill. And I also would say that we then utilize this opportunity to then have a broader conversation about other tax reforms that will ensure that our taxation system, looking at the institution, looking at the policies, looking at the mechanisms of our tax collection, specifically on domestic resource mobilization, are relooked afresh, because we have been on this journey from 2011, and then we now reform the VAT, reform the excise. So we have been on this journey. I would say that it would be important then we comprehensively look at it so that we do not get to this place, because we've postponed it. 2013, 2016, and there is high likelihood from all the calls that you see that we will postpone it again. And basically, when we postponed it, I think there are better, the gains that we get. Think about the public good towards the president's support, for example, to the fight against corruption, because you need public support towards such a critical agenda, because there was actually a public acknowledgement of the extent of the leakages and the wastes from the taxation system through corruption, that it amounts to approximately
700 billion.
You're looking at a quarter of the budget going towards leakages and waste, corruption, all the inefficiencies. So you look at what you're going to collect from the VAT, which is approximately 70 billion, and you look at what the other greater good that you would get from robust initiatives like what we're seeing, the fight against corruption, the reforms, because the public play a major critical place, not just in any policy-making process, but even looking at the centrality of the people in the architecture of our Constitution of Kenya 2010. So I think I would support and back the calls, but say, let's not then postpone it and we be 2 years down the line in 2020, Abby, I don't know if you'll be, and we again discuss what should be done. I think let's then have broader conversation on how do we better mobilize resources domestically.
All right. Of course, I'll still be here in 2020,
okay.
God willing.
Okay.
But looking at the bigger picture, yes. Vincent, as much as the government is trying to raise taxes through this measure of levying a 16% of value-added tax yes. on fuel, of course, we're also getting reports that a court in Bungoma has suspended this particular tax.
Okay.
From a legal perspective, what does this mean? Does it also symbolize that we'll immediately revert to the
status quo.
Status quo,
yeah, because
or a petition will be raised.
If we have a declaration from court, then a stay means you preserve the status quo. So, as in, because I haven't not come across the judgment and everything, but in the event the court we need to check the substance of the court ruling.
All right.
Because if it's a stay, it means non-implementation. Because currently what we are implementing is the VAT as passed in 2016, which was postponed for another 2 years.
2 years.
So I would really be interested on the substance of the ruling, so that we can authoritatively comment on its ramification. But if I would make the assumption that then they have suspended, then it means the application of 16% VAT on petroleum products is hereby suspended, and then we would have fuel at the prices before what we currently have.
All right.
Yeah.
And finally, Vincent, as much as there is talk of why couldn't the government tax other sectors?
Yes, and that is where
which sectors are this? Is it
like
time that...
I remember I appeared before the Committee on Finance and Planning and actually pointed out that there are other areas, like just look at even the excise itself, the taxation of goods that have negative externalities like tobacco products. Currently, even with the admission of the industry itself, they actually, in their submission, if you check the report, they admit that the government is losing revenue. So one of the things that I have a concern is that we need to then have broader discussion that there are sectors that we need to bring on board. How do we, like I give you an example, a very easy place is the sin tax, taxation of tobacco products, where you will have increased revenue and we have better public health outcomes as a result of that. Look at the presumptive tax. When you look at the incentives given to the private, to the so-called informal sector, look at the model that the banking sector used to bring them on board. That is a sector, if we facilitate them, would actually see them paying taxes more and ensuring that they are part of the broader base of the taxation base in our country. I also look at the facilitation of our that is given to our institutions, looking at the fiscal authorities. So that's what I was talking about. We really need to look at our tax system so that we facilitate people paying taxes and ensure that we seal the leakages. Finally, allow me to say this. And also the use of this tax is important. The reports from the Auditor General indicates actually even the taxes that are raised, some of them are not effectively and efficiently utilized. So having that entire comprehensive discussion that as we talk about domestic resource mobilization, the allocation, even the accountability bit, because how can we have public institutions having qualified opinions consistently, yet they actually occupy or take the huge chunk of what we are even struggling to collect? So that would be my recommendation.
Many thanks, Vincent Kimasob from the Tax Justice Network, just giving some context to this developing story in the country, citing that perhaps the government should consider taxing other sectors that include the Veblen goods. Well, We're going to go for a quick commercial break. On the other side of the break, I'll be speaking to Ian Hallmark, who is a product manager, and we'll be talking about e-commerce. I will also be having a special focus on the SME conference happening at Strathmore. We'll be hosting Jeff Njao. I know he's been missing in